Hi, and welcome back to the video series on community input for the 2023 budget. This series is organized around the four main themes we heard about from the public: community services, public safety, revenue and growth, and public works and infrastructure. This video will focus on the input we received about public works and infrastructure, which includes issues such as street maintenance and capital investment. If you're interested in the other themes, you can find videos about them on the UG YouTube page and website. Let's get started. First, remember that our channels of community input came from data and comparisons, budget hearings, the 2022 community survey, Dotte talks, and the budget simulator. This graphic shows the number of participants and respondents we got from each channel of input. Notably, the community survey has far and above the most participation out of any channel, and participants in this survey make up the only representative sample out of any of the channels. Representative means that the sample is comparable to our community as a whole on major demographic areas such as age, sex, race, education, and income. Now that we've discussed how community input was collected, let's dive into what we heard about public works and infrastructure. We will first discuss the main themes, and then we will dive into more detail about issues of infrastructure investment and our current staffing levels. This slide highlights major themes we heard about public works and infrastructure from each channel. From our data and comparisons research, we found that we spend relatively less in parks as compared to other communities. We also have more built out infrastructure than other communities. Finally, we have fewer staff dedicated to supporting our infrastructure maintenance. From the budget hearings, we heard that all parks and recreation facilities should be accessible. We also heard the Boston Daniels and Clem parks need to be cleaned up and updated. From the 2022 community survey, we saw that top priorities included the satisfaction with neighborhood streets, maintenance of major city streets, overall cleanliness of streets and other public areas, and maintenance of sidewalks. For parks and recreation, the top priorities were access to walking and biking trails, park equipment, and youth, adult, and senior programs. From the Dotte talks, we heard the recommendation to invest more in our infrastructure and fix what we have and grow our tax base. We heard the need to improve our parks and recreation services and programs. We also heard the need to look at the mix of physical amenities across the county. Many residents said that safe routes to school and sidewalk repair was important. And we heard the need to make UG facilities more sustainable. From the Dotte talks and budget simulator, we heard the need to invest more in infrastructure and create safe streets and sidewalks. We also heard the need to plant more street trees and improve lighting. We heard the plea to improve access to and reliance on more renewable energy, including industrial and commercial composting. Finally, we heard the need to improve maintenance and reduce assets to sustain what we have. Now that we know the major themes, we will dive into some specific issues surrounding public works and infrastructure, including what we heard from you and the current state of our public works workforce, pavement conditions, and development and infrastructure. First, let's look at what the community had to say about public works and infrastructure. This table comes from our community survey, and it compares how UG services were ranked on importance and satisfaction. The services closest to the top of the table represent areas that are lower in satisfaction and higher in importance, or in other words, areas we need to focus on improving because they matter to the community and are currently not meeting community standards. Maintenance of city streets was the top priority on the community survey, with 72% of respondents ranking it the most important community service priority. This service also displays the biggest room for improvement. While 73% of respondents rated it the most important, only 25% of respondents were satisfied with this service. Also highly ranked was Parks and Recreation infrastructure, which landed 4th out of 12 on this chart. Here, the percentage of respondents satisfied with this service was actually higher than the percentage of respondents who ranked it as most important. 29% of respondents rated Parks and Rec facilities as the most important service, while 46% of respondents said they were satisfied. Now, let's move on to some of the comments we heard regarding public works and infrastructure through the Dotte talks and budget simulator. One resident noted that we have significantly underfunded infrastructure problem. We also heard the need for more facilities for parks and recreation and more youth and senior programs. People emphasized sidewalk repair and the need for safe sidewalks to schools. Residents also expressed interest in having another pool, dog park, and spray park. One resident wrote, "We need more investment in our parks and streets infrastructure to address aging infrastructure needs and improve community infrastructure for public perception of the community and to improve tax base and economic development." Let's analyze the budget simulator results with regards to public works and infrastructure. The first chart on the top right shows the average percent change that respondents made to each functional area of the budget. It is notable that capital investment in infrastructure was the only area of the budget simulator with a positive percent change, and also represents the greatest percent change. The average percent change for funding and capital investment in infrastructure was 15.25%. The chart below breaks down the areas of public works and infrastructure that respondents could adjust funding for. Here, we see that the average percent change for streets and bridges was 7. The average percent change for parks and recreation was 5.16%. The average percent change for street and maintenance was 1.93%. For street preservation was 1.46%. For buildings and logistics was negative 1.34%, and for solid waste management was negative 2.28%. When we turn to regional benchmarking, we can compare our total paved lane miles and workforce to that of nearby communities. The top graph displays the total paved lane miles per 1,000 population for KCK, KC-Mo, Shawnee, Prairie Village, Roland Park, Olathe, and Liberty. We see that Kansas City, Kansas has the highest number of total paved lane miles out of any of these communities, with 15.7 lane miles per 1,000 population. The bottom graph displays the number of full-time employees per 1,000 lane miles for each of the communities, and we see that Kansas City, Kansas falls last on this list. So the takeaway from these graphs shows that while we have a high number of lane miles per 1,000 population, we lack the staff to handle street maintenance for those lane miles. This pavement condition index gives us a better idea of the current state of our roads. The yellow map shows that the present state of our roads falls about in the middle of the pavement condition index. The smaller red map shows that the future state of our roads will fail into the red area of the pavement condition index with everything kept equal. These maps illustrate the magnitude of the rapidly deteriorating infrastructure across the community as streets get worse at the current level of funding. Now compare the state of our roads with job density in Wyandotte County. The map here shows job density in Wyandotte County with less jobs in lighter blue and more jobs in darker blue. We see that the county has about 550,000 average daily trips by driving and about 3.4 average daily trips per capita. Major job centers within the county are geographically dispersed and are mainly accessible by automobile. We heard a lot of feedback on transit access and economic opportunity from the community, which points to mobility challenges facing many residents. Addressing land use and infrastructure will help improve health and environmental outcomes while potentially reducing transportation and infrastructure costs. Finally, we end this video with a top insight from the community about public works and infrastructure, which is to address decades of deferred maintenance, enforce codes, and increase community-wide access to amenities. We also heard the ideas to expedite the land bank processes and rethink development incentives. Thank you for listening today, and please find the videos about the other themes we heard from the community on the UG's YouTube channel and website.